Greetings, holiday shoppers. There are now just 309 shopping days left until Christmas Day. I believe you know what that means. That means it's time for another episode of Christmas Creeps, your one-stop shop for holiday movies and TV shows all year round. Since 2015, we've been putting this show on for you fine people, and there's no sign of us stopping yet. Hi, my name is Joseph Wade. I will be your host for this evening. Here with me tonight is my co-host, Johnny Five, the Human Robot.
Hello, hello.
Hello, John. And also our other co-host, esteemed guest and panelist, whatever you want to call him, man of all trades, Mr. Bradford is here as well. Brad.
So what becomes of you, my love, when they have finally stripped you of the handbags and the glad rags that your poor old granddad had to sweat to buy you? That was terrible.
Yes,
and I apologize for nothing.
That's the second best version of that song I've ever heard.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, hey, it is the middle of December. Jesus Christ. I don't even know when it is anymore.
Here's the problem with that song, though. Is that all Tom Jones songs are obsolete because he recorded Sex Bomb, and it's the best. So, like, you don't need any other songs. You could just use that for everything.
It's always the middle of December in our world, if you think about it. But yes.
Now I cannot cut that part of the episode. So thanks for that. Thanks for making my job just a little bit easier.
Trap sprung.
We have to be on point on these shows, or else one of these two is gonna just completely screw things up for me. But you know what? That's the job, and that's kind of that's what I signed up for. But yeah. Anyway, hi, welcome to Christmas Creeps. We are in the middle of I guess the bleakest of midwinters. As we record this, I'm getting ready to crack open my cold one right now, and it doesn't sound like anything because it's a bottle, and that's fine.
Got something.
There we
Damn,
go.
that spiked when I did that. No, that was me, not him.
That was you, yeah.
I heard the bottle open too. We're good.
Okay.
We're all enjoying a nice bev.
It's a Christmas party here on Christmas Creeps this week, as we're discussing the 2003 Christmas special of the UK version of The Office. Which, there's a lot of moving parts to this phenomenon, so I feel like we can just jump right in at any old point. But gentlemen, The Office, initial thoughts
on the Christmas special or in general?
In general.
Oh man!
Specifically, the British Office. We're not going to touch the American Office.
I feel like it's the elephant in the room that needs to be addressed, though.
What, the American Office?
I'll just say
the elephant in the office.
With the American Office is kind of a logical progression of what season 2 started to turn into of the UK one. If they would have kept making it, which Merchant and Gervais specifically decided not to. That's why they did the Christmas special, because they didn't want to do a season 3, so they just wrapped the plot up in a Christmas special.
Yeah,
but
tied up a lot of loose ends.
Yeah, but some of the character
we will get into.
A lot of the character development that kind of started in 2, that wasn't in 1, kind of fed into what made the US Office. And yes. I'd say the biggest difference with the US Office is that all of the characters in the US Office, by and large, are meant to be like more obviously sympathetic characters.
Yes, they're more likable, even, yeah.
I
think the big thing about the UK office versus the US office is the general assumption about humanity.
Yeah.
Did
either of you read an article, an AV Club interview from 2007 with Ricky Gervais about extras in The Office, by any chance?
No, I missed that.
Okay, well, it's good, because I'm going to ask you a question from that. Because they asked Ricky Gervais about like character likability, and he said that there were only 2 characters in the UK series you were meant to actually dislike. Can you think of who those 2 characters are?
The manager of the warehouse and David Brent.
No, you were wrong on both counts. Finchy is definitely one of them.
Finchy, okay, I got one. Yay.
Yes. Who's the other one?
It's been a long time since I think I watched the UK Office. Netflix says I watched it, but I really don't remember when I think I watched it maybe 10 years ago or something.
The other character he says is meant to be unlikable is Neil.
Which one's Neil again?
Neil is the manager who kind of replaced David.
Oh, he's Toby basically, but for the British Office. He's the like the main like branch head or whatever guy. Okay. Fair enough.
Which, because, I mean, it's obvious with Finch, because Finch is just an out-and-out bully. You know, it's very blatant. But with Neil, it's kind of more insidious, because Neil's the kind of guy where... Neil is Homer Simpson's to David Brent's Frank Grimes, is really all I can say. Someone who...
I don't know about... See, I feel like that falls on Ricky Gervais as a person.
Well, Ricky Gervais created the fucking thing, so I'll trust his judgment on what he says to that.
I know, but I never got any inclination from Neil that he was anything other than just like a straight up businessman. Like David Brent is pretty clearly kind of an imbecile.
Yeah. Can I just tell you, Joe? It's because of your personal history, and I won't get into that. But the idea is basically Neil is a guy. What
I'm saying is I don't see anything in specifically in the show that says that Neil is a bad person. He just is a businessman. Like if that's the one. If that's like the one thing that makes him an unlikable person in the show, then fuck all of us, I guess.
No, the idea is that Neil is someone who's had all of his successes in life handed to him. Like, just, he's not really had to work for anything, and he doesn't appreciate anything he's had, because all David has ever wanted to do in his life is just to be, like, liked and successful to some extent. And Neil gets that without even trying. That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
it's
but
not
at what
really
point in the series do they spell that out? Do they acknowledge that?
He's kind of a dick in the Christmas special.
Yeah, that's
where he knows that David doesn't have a date, and he's, like, stringing him along and giving him a hard time. Like, I can see how he's painted as an unlikable character. I can see it. I get where you're going with the he's just a businessman thing.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that one, that he's, like, giving it back to David as much as he's taken it. But, like, the rest of it, I don't know. I just don't see it.
Exactly. Again, I'm going to compare them. It's like Homer Simpson and Frank Grimes. No one sees it but Frank Grimes. And Grimes is just absolutely beside himself. How can you like this guy? He's such a careless asshole, and anything he's been given in life, he doesn't appreciate any of it, and it's just been dropped in his lap. Because remember, the only reason Neil got promoted is because David failed his physical. David was the one who got the promotion at the end of season 1.
Hang on,
getting into it hot and heavy.
Because
this
is
going to be like a referendum on the entire series.
That's what this episode is, basically.
That's what I was thinking about with rewatching it, though. Is it's really hard not to feel sorry for David Brent, like, because you kind of see exactly who he is. Because compare him to Tim, and I think Tim really needs to be looking at David and being like, there for the grace of God, pretty much, because David is a guy who is incredibly lonely in his 40s, and the only thing he has going for them is the fact that he's a manager of a small branch of this fucking paper company. And
he's been stripped of even that in the Christmas special we must mention.
And you kind of get the idea that he's the kind of guy who had some, like, mild to middling success with, like, a band in, like, high school or something like that never really took off, but he still has that kind of Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite episode of if things had gone a little differently. Because
and hey, guess what? That sounds a lot like a certain TV personality that is in this show.
Yeah,
it sounds an awful lot like Ricky Gervais himself.
So we should address the other elephant in the office, which is that Ricky Gervais at this point in 2019 has gone basically full milkshake duck.
Yeah. Like, he's doing things like posting pictures of himself laughing and being like, "Oh, I'm laughing at the thing you're not supposed to laugh at, aren't I, a naughty boy?"
Did you... I don't want to get too much into, like, internet drama, but you guys have had to have seen this. This is probably 5 years old at this point, where somebody, like, subtweeted about Ricky Gervais being a bad comedian, and then Ricky Gervais finds the post, and he's like, "Why don't you at me, you spineless coward," or something like that, and the person just said, "Are you offended?" And then he got blocked by Ricky Gervais.
Oh, Chelsea Clinton name searches on Twitter, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I did see that recently as well. Yeah.
Speaking of do nothing worthless assholes, Chelsea Clinton.
As far as Ricky Gervais in 2019 goes, like, one of my favorite things about Twitter right now is that you can tell, like, you can tell who is who on Twitter, because, like, I see a lot of people who have used that picture of Ricky Gervais where he's holding the microphone stand and he's kind of standing like in a Jesus Christ pose.
Yes. God, that picture.
Just to be a piece of shit. And people are using that ironically as their own picture, and I love that.
Yeah.
Come the fuck on, dude.
Yeah, it's pretty bad now. And let's go ahead and just call it. Is the UK Office the height of Ricky Gervais's career, basically? Because he's really good as David Brent, but I
would
can't
say
really, other
Extras
than
probably is the peak.
The what? Extras?
Yeah, the show he did after The Office. I think it's probably his peak.
Okay. Also, I did like back in the day. I'd really like the podcast, the Ricky Gervais show with Merchant and Pilkington.
I think probably
is all time.
The biggest problem with Gervais is kind of the problem that happens with a lot of comedians is they have a certain chronological point where they kind of hit their prime and they never move on from that point.
Yeah,
it's why you have a lot of like late 80s, early 90s SNL people are just now like reactionary right wing dipshits on Twitter.
Hey, Louis C.K., how's it going?
I was more talking to Dennis Miller, but
it's yeah.
I mean, Dennis Miller is the big one, really.
But yeah, like Victoria Jackson is that way too. Unfortunately, Norm Macdonald is really bad, and that's the one that makes me the saddest.
Oh,
I think I don't know. I'm not gonna jump into that pool just because, like, I feel like it's a lot of old comedians not understanding new comedy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They never moved on from the 90s.
They really never did. But yeah, like if I watched some of the behind the scenes stuff for this version of The Office last night, and a lot of it really does strike me as just like, okay, so Stephen Merchant obviously had sort of this vision of like a mockumentary series about an office. He had that in his head already, and then Ricky Gervais kind of teamed up with him and pounced on it as a means of like, oh, hey, this is my in. And he rode that as hard as he could, and now we're stuck with him.
I mean,
I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah, I don't really care how you feel about Gervais nowadays, but David Brent was one of like the best tragic comedic characters during that age. Like it's a good performance. Like, you're right. You do feel sorry for him. He's just the most pathetic, human being on this planet in this universe. And it's like, I don't know. It's funny and it's cringeworthy.
Just imagine being a person on TV who is intensely aware of all times that there's a camera on you and feel the need to perform, but you have absolutely no idea what you're supposed to be doing. Like, it is impossible for him to act natural. He has no idea how. Like, everything has to be a performance with him when the camera's on.
It's so good.
I mean, like, again, I can think of certain famous people that are like constantly on TV right now that definitely applies to. And I can't say it started here with David Brent, but he's definitely, you're right, like one of the big archetypes of that kind of person. And
that's kind of what I was getting at with like the failed high school band, because he's the kind of guy who's like felt like success has like slipped him by, and he views like just the fact that there's a camera around him as this is his big chance to do anything. But he has no idea at all what to do.
That you get into that with the Christmas special, because he has the single that he releases with settlement money, which is very good.
I like that. And that nice note too. Like, it was his. He got laid off because his position was eliminated, and then he sued them because they gave Gareth his old position. Yeah,
and then
they make the point of saying that like he blew all of his settlement money to the tune of like $42,000 to produce the single.
£42,000, which is like 60 grand at least.
Back then, that might have been a 1-to-2 exchange rate. That's he's closing in on $100K spent on this fucking thing.
Yeah. But it also gets into it that he's doing these public appearances. I guess we should actually get into the plot of the Christmas special.
Sure. And the Christmas special definitely ties into a lot of things that had just been happening at the end of season 2. Like, David Brent had just given this sort of weird motivational speech that really goes over very poorly, and they don't hire him on to give more speeches, but that kind of feeds into the Christmas special, where he's now making these sort of public appearances after the documentary of The Office has gone to television.
Right, where he's become like sort of like this D-list celebrity, where they roll him out and say, hey, remember this guy? Like, if you remember, like, Kitchen Nightmares, there was that Amy's Baking Company episode where there's that lady that's just really weird. It's he's kind of like that level.
Yeah, like he's like above Puck from one of the first seasons of Real World, but like below like Bo Dietl, pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like when anytime somebody gets famous off of like Big Brother or Survivor or even like American Idol, and they get trotted out at like a state fair or something, and like, hey, well, remember this guy from Big Brother? Okay, yeah. What do you do?
Oh wait, no, sorry,
nothing.
I got it. He's Kinbone. He's Kinbone. There we go.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he's Kinbone. Yeah.
So they actually get into that, and I thought it was a really great scene. And during his first public appearance in this special, where he's like, "What do you do now?" And he's just like, "Just do these." He's like, "So what are you planning on doing?" He's like, "Just some public appearances."
More of
like,
these.
Yeah, like they're asking him like what he does with his life, and he's like, "I don't know. I'm here. What do you want from me?" Like it's a very like it's almost like a anti-comedy bit. But he's being
it's
sincere.
absolutely
No, like you would expect like that's like an anti-comedy thing, but he's being sincere.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like he's not. It's not a bit. It's not a joke. He is 100% like kind of floundering right now.
Okay.
On stage on purpose.
All right, let's blitz through this because I could probably finish this in 5 minutes.
Do it to it, Brad.
So we can get back to just talking about it. Am I breaking up or something? What's up?
No. I said no. I just said do it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
when I give this summary, I'm gonna assume that you have seen the UK Office at least up to the end of the second season, aka series, but have not seen the Christmas special yet. So it's 3 years after, or is it two? It's like 2 or 3 years after the end of the mockumentary or the documentary, the in-universe documentary that the BBC did called The Office, and we find that David Brent is traveling around the southern UK as a cleaning supply salesman, but always drops into Wernham Hog, where most of the same people are still working there. Tim is still working there. Gareth has taken over David's job. There's a new receptionist in the place of Dawn, and then pretty much all the old gang is more or less there. Dawn and Lee are living in Florida, where they're just kind of living with a relative rent-free, and Dawn is picking up odd jobs like babysitting, and I think it's implied that they've outstayed their visa and they're just hanging out.
Oh, she said it's explicit. She says, "Oh, we're being a bit naughty. We've overstayed our visa." Yeah.
So they're in Florida. I think,
and it's not so much even like an odd job of babysitting, because I think they pretty much say that it's like her sister-in-law's baby.
Yeah, they're just being stay-in caretakers for a baby, but the people that are the in-universe thing is that they are doing a where are they now sort of view of everybody at the office, and they offer to fly Lee and Dawn back to Slough to meet up with all of the rest of the cast of The Office, so to speak. Tim still hasn't gotten over Dawn, and he hears this. And it's around Christmas time, which we should mention, especially in the case of this podcast. David Brent is still his pathetic self, and he's doing public appearances at bars after his work, traveling around the country and basically living in hotels. But always finds time to stop by Wernham Hog and bug everybody.
I want to hit on the dating game show that he does.
Yes,
where it's the gimmick of the dating game thing. Essentially, it's not even televised. It's like a bar, but it's like 3 minor celebrities. Like there's a guy from Big Brother, a guy who's famous from being in ads for like having a catchphrase, basically.
Yeah. It's like insurance commercials or something.
Yeah, and then David Brent is there dressed as Austin Powers because he tries too fucking hard at everything he does.
It's so bad. It's so good. Yeah, that's a very good one. But we're treated to these bits where he's just like he's out doing PAs and absolutely bombing and managing to ruin every single one of them, and it's pathetic and it's wonderful and it's great.
He has a manager who mainly manages like lookalikes and stuff like that.
Yeah. Subplot is that David Brent is getting into online dating with the help of Gareth, and he's trying to find a date for this Christmas party that Wernham Hog is having, because I guess offices in the UK invite ex-employees to their Christmas parties. I don't know how this works.
I would guess probably like Gareth invited him as a friend or something like that.
Yeah, or like his +1 basically.
But then they also like they sell tickets to the party, right? because like David specifically buys 2 tickets, and they're like, "Oh, for second tickets for whom?" He's like, "Oh, my new special lady in my life," and he's like, "Oh, we're glad to meet her," and that's what kind of prompts him to get into this online dating because he needs to find a date for this party so that he can show Neil up at the party.
And then we're treated to a couple of funny but pathetic and awful scenes where David Brent is being extremely shallow when it comes to his dates that he's set up with in this matching service. And in one case, he calls them. He's like, "Yeah, you probably already know me. I was in the office." He's like, "Oh, you're not that awful manager, are you?" And then he friggin' hangs up on her, basically.
It's great. The one date we see him on, he's with a woman who... It's a heavyset middle-aged woman who sent a picture of her like 10 years ago to the dating service. But he didn't do much better with his picture because he sent almost like a teen pinup picture of himself.
It's like a glamour shot where he's like his shirt is open,
and he autographed it for because it's like one of his headshots basically.
Yeah. Oh, okay. What else is there? This is kind of all of the working parts of the plot.
Yeah, there's 2 parts of it, and the first part is basically everything we just described, and then the next night in 2004, this part 2 aired, which is the actual party itself.
Wait, so these 2 aired a year apart?
No, they aired a day apart.
Oh, one was New Year's Eve, one was New Year's Day.
No, one was like the 26th, and one was the 27th of like 2004.
Oh, okay. Oh, because the stamp on the end was 2003, but I guess that's when it was filmed.
It's 2003.
Yeah, 2003. Yeah, but yeah, they aired like a day apart the same year, right after Christmas that year.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if they did like a Sherlock thing where they aired like one New Year's Eve and then one New Year's Day or whatever. Or maybe they air it on Christmas. I know that's a British thing, right?
Yeah, it's a British thing to basically do Christmas specials of their current series.
But like weirdly canonical Christmas specials where it's like the series hasn't had a new episode in a year and yet there's a new episode now.
Right. This isn't a Christmas special where like it's a variety show starring David Brent. That would be a fucking spectacle and a half though, wouldn't it?
Yes. Does somebody want to pick up the second episode? I would like to see Viva
Variety come back as well, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I want to see Johnny Blue Jeans again.
Who wants to do the second episode?
Well, no, we kind of started to get into it because like in the second episode it starts out and that's when David and Gareth are really like amping up
trying to find him a date.
Yeah, like they're really like going through all the files and like look at this one now, look at this one now, and then
there's a really great bad joke where he's like, what is it? It's like something about he's asking if there are any other women than white women, and he's like, well, they sent me these just to be representative. He's like, pick one out of the 3, and then they throw the other 2 into the garbage. It's terrible. It's so bad.
It's pretty, and they only pick the one they pick is the only one of the 3 who's
smiling. It's oh man,
oh my god. So yeah, that's when he like calls up like one of the women, and then she's like, "Oh, you're not that awful guy from the manager from the office, are you?" And he hangs up on her. That is when I think that's when the party kind of start really. No, they're planning the party, and Gareth has like the office planning committee to do. What does everybody want for this Christmas party, and everyone's throwing out ideas, and he's writing down everybody's ideas but Tim's, and Tim is just like livid that they're doing. He literally writes down something for the old people, and Tim's like, you can't just say that's an idea
girls
for a Christmas
wet t-shirt contest.
He says girls wet t-shirt contest, so Gareth writes them down, and because he's writing down everything anyone says, he's being democratic that way.
He's being democratic.
It's very good,
specifically except for Tim. Oh boy. So then the actual party kicks in, and also it's at this point that Neil really gets on David's case for showing up at the office all the time, because David, despite being fired and despite winning a lawsuit against the company, keeps showing up at work just to hang out. And so
bothering everybody.
Bothering everybody, wasting everybody's time. So David gets on, Neil gets on David's... Neil gets on David's case about this and basically bans him from the Christmas dinner and says like only current employees get to come to the Christmas dinner.
Yeah, to specify the dinner and the party are 2 different things.
Yes. But that still does not preclude him from coming to the party.
Yeah, and I just want to. This is a point I want to make of like a hot take thing of when David basically asks who wants to have a drink with him the next night, and the only one who says yeah is Tim. And
yeah, I was going to get into that. Go on, hot take.
The obvious way to read that is just that no one gives a shit about David. But the way I choose to read it now is that the only person who's not afraid of Neil is Tim, because Tim doesn't give a fuck about his job.
Yeah, that's especially after, like, you know, he asks them all out for drinks and no one says a word, and then Tim's new, like, desk mate just, like, dresses him down right in front of everybody. It's like, nobody wants to have a drink with you, jerk. And then Tim's like, I guess I will.
Yeah,
like, and I feel like that's more about Tim being like, all right, I'll be the decent human being in the room and say, sure, I'll do it.
I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier, where Tim has sort of this "there but for the grace of God go I" feeling towards David, where it's like, he's a prick and he's the worst, but he's also like, he feels bad for David, and, you know, he's a human being too. I mean, I guess.
Like, look at what David is. David is in his, like, mid-40s, completely lonely. All he's ever known is this company. He's not been in any relationship to speak of because there's no ex he ever mentions. You know, he's not been in.
And then that's Tim.
Yeah, Tim
basically.
Tim is in his
10
30s.
years.
Yeah, Tim is in his mid-30s, lives with his parents still because he has no prospects at all. He went to school for like a semester and then dropped out.
Right, and explicitly states that he has no friends.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And Tim was at that point, like, in the first series, where he basically, you know, he quits at the end of the first season, and then at the beginning of the second season, he's back because, well, what else are you gonna do? So yeah, Tim really is the most sympathetic person in this entire show.
Well, yeah, he's supposed to be the everyman.
Clearly, yeah, but I mean, they bring it out very well.
I mean, I feel more sympathetic towards David Brent, as cringeworthy and awful of a person he is. Like, I don't know.
It's more like with Tim, you just want to, like, be like, yeah, I know how you feel. Now with David, you just want to, like, put a blanket around his shoulders and sit him down and just be like, dude, it's okay, you can stop trying.
Yeah.
If only somebody, like, had the courage to say that to him.
And we'll get into it, and this is the other nuclear take. And I know this is going to go against exactly what I said just 30 seconds ago, but we'll get into it. Anyways.
All right. So, I mean, basically, to wrap up the Christmas special, I mean, the Christmas party kicks into gear, and it's what kind of all of the everybody's emotions sort of take over, and all of the plot threads sort of resolve themselves. Like, Dawn and Lee show up for the Christmas party, and it's kind of been established that Dawn is not all that happy with Lee. Yeah, it's still that kind of will they won't they with regard to Tim, and Tim has constantly said, like, I'm not going to make a move, I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to tell Dawn how I feel again because you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, because and then to reiterate, at the end of season 2, right before she was leaving the fucking country, he asked her out, and of course she said no because she was leaving the fucking country.
Yeah,
right. But there's still all that lingering stuff going on. Brad, hit it.
And they're catching up at the party, and they're really enjoying, you know, being together and taking Gareth on a roundabout innuendo. And Lee kind of comes up and breaks up the party a little bit. And eventually they leave, but we find out that there was a Secret Santa exchange, and Tim had Dawn as his Secret Santa. No, his Secret Santa. Whatever. Tim gives Dawn an anonymous gift, but it's not so anonymous because it has a drawing that Dawn made for Tim earlier in the day. And come to find out that Dawn had given up on drawing and illustration, and Tim had given her a set of pastels and said, never give up. And it has a picture that she drew of Tim. And apparently that is enough for her to leave Lee and come back to Tim, and they finally resolve the will they, won't they.
Well, you say apparently that's enough, but I mean, it's very clear that the only reason she is with Lee is because she doesn't know what else to do. She's been dating Lee since high school. True. It's all she's ever known, and it's pretty much she's just like, oh, what else am I gonna do with my life?
And and Lee is apparently content to just like go back to the U.S. and be an illegal immigrant and just hang out and have no job, and she kind of doesn't want that.
Yeah, sorry, obviously. I didn't mean it was enough, but that's enough to push her over the fence.
I get you. I was about to make some crack about like, well, if that's all it takes, you know, what the hell have I been doing with my life?
No, this had been a long-standing thing for 2 seasons of will they, won't they,
right,
etc. So,
but then we get other sort of similar revelations where David's latest blind date shows up for the party, and she's kind of a lovely person, and he has a good time with her, and they dance and they talk about this, that, and the other. And he finally kind of stands up to Finch, who is constantly making cracks about David. And
he stands up to Finch and Neil, I'll point out.
Yes, Neil, at the same time.
And I do want to point out, too, with the date he gets, she's not seen the series, I think is why they hit it off, because he's able to actually talk to her without her having a preconceived notion of him.
Yeah.
Right. Because he talks about, like, she knows that he told her that he's on the show, but she hasn't seen it. And then he starts telling her, well, they put in all the most embarrassing things that I do. They don't show all the great things that I do.
It was a hit job.
Which, you want to know a secret? You want to know a secret? He's not fucking wrong at all. This is just from the knowledge of reality TV having existed for another 15 years after this is being made. But yeah, he's not fucking wrong at all.
Oh yeah,
no, I totally believe.
I think even in 2003, most people knew that.
Oh no, most people didn't. Most people didn't know it, but that didn't mean it wasn't happening too. I mean, like, again, to go back to talk about Puck from the Real World, like the first couple seasons of Real World, that's kind of what they did in the early mid 90s. They would get like one person who's not white on the show and just give everyone so much fucking booze that they just went crazy, and then just say like, "Oh, look at this crazy black guy." It's like, why don't you film all the other people being just as fucking bad?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it takes it kind of takes the reality TV idea and takes it to its logical extreme, where like, of course they're engineering drama and comedy at the expense of real people, but in doing that for, like, I don't know. I don't even know what point I'm trying to make here.
And I could see it as kind of a retaliatory thing on the part of like the documentary crew, because David is so much like hamming it up that they just get tired of his shit, pretty much.
Yeah. Like, specifically, I'm thinking of shit like that weird dance that he does in season 2 during like the comic relief day, where he's just like disco dancing for himself and nobody seems to care. Like, just he's always on, and so whenever he kind of finally shuts down, it does reveal sort of something about him. As a person.
Because there's a couple of moments where like you kind of catch the camera coming onto him while he's mid something, and he's actually being like engaging and charismatic. Like, he tells a joke that the camera just catches the punchline to, and the entire office laughs at it. But as soon as the camera's on him, all he can think about doing is like quoting like 10-year-old sitcoms, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Which that is what happens at the end of the show, by the way. The very last thing that happens is David asks for a picture of just the old gang, and he gets it, and he makes a reference to like a 70s British sitcom, and everyone actually genuinely laughs at it because it's like well timed and funny, but then he over explains the joke, and that's the final punchline.
It's David Brent in a nutshell. So here's my nuclear take. And maybe it's not a take at all, and I don't know, and I'm kind of two minds about it. Does this series, this Christmas special, gives David Brent not a happy ending, but at least like a somewhat optimistic ending?
A hopeful ending.
Does it... It's open-ended, but does it do the series a service to give... Well, also Tim, for another thing. Is the series better off without this Christmas special? I guess is what. So you're saying that this Christmas special sort of tarnishes the rest of. It would have been better if the series would have been better without the Christmas special.
I'm saying this. I'm saying the series is just like an exercise in human misery without the Christmas special.
Yeah,
and the Christmas special dials things back because it's Christmas, and there's enough fucking misery in the world that we don't need more. So.
I get that, but I think that this Christmas special undermines a lot of what the series was doing and a lot of the premise of the series. And that's not to say that...
See, this is tough, because on the one hand, I totally agree with everything Brad's saying, but at the same time, I'm kind of on John's side here, because like I do genuinely want these people to have like some sort of a happy ending, and I'm glad the show at least attempts to give them that. But... saying that, like, I realize that kind of undermines everything that the last 12 episodes has been about.
Yes, and there's so much television that gives people... I mean, not nowadays, because television is weird, but back then, at least to some degree, most television was content to give people happy endings.
I mean,
and I feel like so much of the UK Office... Say what?
Is that so wrong, though? I mean, life is fucking miserable enough, so...
Who's to say who's to say if it's wrong or right? But
me, I will.
Point being is it was doing something so different, and then it takes this swerve at the end and undermines how brave it was to make a really depressing comedy during that time.
What I will say is you kind of saw the curve coming because they were already working in series 2 to make David less of a
total.
Yeah, he like more. They were more playing up like the fact that he is incompetent and doesn't and wants to be liked but has no idea what to do, rather than him just being like a malignant asshole, pretty much. Which actually that brings up another point. Do you guys know about the Peter principle?
Explain it.
It's a business concept by a guy whose last name is Peter. I don't remember his full name. The idea being that you take someone who's good at their job and then you promote them to team lead, and then they're good at team lead, they get promoted to manager. They're good at manager, they get promoted to district manager. But at some point along that line, they're going to stop being good at their job and they're going to be bad at their job. But they're not going to get demoted. They're just going to stay at that job and be bad at it. Basically, everyone rises to the level of their incompetence, pretty much. And that's kind of
interesting.
That is like extremely, extremely, extremely the case with Michael Scott. He is shown as being a fucking amazing salesman who gets promoted to manager, and because all he wants to do with his life is just please everybody, which you can't really do as a manager, he just flounders around. And they kind of tried to steer David in that direction, but they only had 6 episodes to do it, basically.
Yeah.
Which a corollary of that is also like what they call like what TV tropes calls the Dilbert principle, which is about the pointy-haired boss, which is the idea that if you have someone who for some reason, usually nepotism, you can't fire, you instead promote them into obscurity. Like you give them a promotion to like, executive in charge of, business development, blah, 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 like a completely meaningless title that the idea is you get them out of the way so they can't do any real damage.
Right.
Which is that the argument can be made that that's what David's promotion was in like the end of season 1. Like he was getting promoted out of harm's way, basically. So he couldn't getting promoted to branch man or to regional manager, so he couldn't, or to like general manager, so he couldn't fuck up the branch he was at anymore.
But that's kind of like the what Kevin Smith refers to as failing upwards.
Yes.
Like they keep doing that to people who don't deserve it because, well, what else are we gonna do? Yeah, and
especially true in the UK, where it's to an extent somewhat harder to fire somebody. Unless you want to pay them unless you want to pay them severance. Like you can't really throw someone out on the street unless they do something as blatant as like shit in the coffee maker, pretty much. So that's why when they finally got rid of him, they gave him like a generous severance package, they said,
So this makes me want to ask, have either of y'all seen the sort of David Brent Netflix special that they put out a couple of years ago?
Life on the Road? I know that it exists, but I've not seen it.
So I don't know if that if that continues his story or if that's just like a sort of an updated version, an updated like its own thing, but with the same character. I don't know. I'm just curious.
I haven't seen it. I didn't know it existed.
All I really know about it is with the turn Ricky Gervais's like existence has taken since 2003. I'm not sure that I'm really interested in much he has to say anymore.
Yeah,
I very want to establish. Don't let the fact that Ricky Gervais is has turned into just an utter dipshit like tarnish anything about The Office UK. I mean, it's not like Woody Allen or Bill Cosby where it's like, oh, this guy was a rapist all along. It's just Ricky Gervais has started saying stupid shit. Is pretty much the problem.
He created a series where he played a mentally handicapped person, basically just to get the goat of people that would be upset by that, and that's a shitty thing to do.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah. I mean, he's basically become an insufferable dipshit, but he kind of always has been. It's just more pronounced than it used to be.
Well, it's kind of, it's kind of like with Kevin Smith. You can still think Clerks or like Chasing Amy is good while thinking that Tusk is utter dog shit, I mean...
I suppose, yeah. So, the Christmas special, I feel like we need to talk more about this as a Christmas special, because that's just what we do here on the show.
Yes.
And I think it ties into, like, the idea of a show like this having a Christmas special is a pretty incredibly British thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because, I mean... especially with British shows having their random season links and random season times, like, oh, we did this episode is 3 seasons, this episode is 13 seasons, and it was 4 years later because that's how much plot we had. They don't feel beholden to the idea of like, oh, we got to put out 26, 22-minute episodes a year or anything like that.
British TV is weird, y'all.
Yeah, they're not as beholden to the idea that we have to get 100 episodes so we can get into syndication.
Yeah, and I very much like that Netflix is starting to do that. I mean, there still are a couple of shows on Netflix, cough, cough, anything Marvel does, cough, cough, that feel like some slavish need to have like a certain amount of episodes at a certain amount of length. But then you have like Stranger Things, which is just like, this season's 8, this season's 9, because that's how much we had, you know?
Right, or like Kimmy Schmidt will, like their most recent season, they're like, we'll put out 6 episodes in the spring, and we'll wait for the fall to put out the last 6 episodes. Like, so we'll just put out some here, put out some there whenever we have a chance.
Yeah, they don't feel the need to hit any magic number and like just fill it out with establishing shots to stretch out the timing, you know?
Or even episode length, which I think is a very constrictive thing for writers, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It's like, if you have a story to tell, trying to break it up into, 22 or 35-minute segments is probably tough. But if you have a little more room to stretch your legs, and if this segment's 26 minutes and this segment's, 50, so be it.
I mean, because compare it to US Office to UK Office, where you have so many deleted scenes from the US Office that are really good jokes, but they're just cut because they weren't relevant to the plot, and so they didn't have time for them.
It's a shame. We should do a quick aside. Opinions on the U.S. Office.
It's called hentai, and its art scene is one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen.
A lot of people are, well, not anymore. I think a lot of people have come around to the U.S. Office, even if they're fans of the U.K. Office. I know it was cool to hate on the U.S. Office a couple years ago when you liked the UK Office, but I kind of like them both for different reasons.
They're different shows. They start in the same place and go in wildly different directions.
Yes.
Yeah, they do. Are y'all ready for my nuclear take on The Office?
Yes.
The 8th season of The American Office is the best season.
I don't think I've gotten that far. I watched The Office when it was current, but I dropped off at some point, and I can't remember why.
Okay, a lot of people really hate like the Office as it's gotten longer in the tooth, like 7, 8, and 9 seasons. Those are the ones that people tend to not like. But I personally love the 8th season because they introduce one of the strangest characters I've ever seen on a mainstream TV show, and his name is Robert California, and I love him.
Okay, now you're making me want to watch I've been meaning to go back and watch it as like a TV comfort food thing, and I might have to do that.
So basically, after Steve Carell decided to leave the show, Michael Scott's he exits after season 7, and the Dunder Mifflin's looking for a new boss, and they bring in what's his name, Will Ferrell for a couple episodes. They bring in Idris Elba for a couple episodes. David Brent shows up to interview for the job on one episode, and then he's gone forever. But then they land on this guy. It's James Spader playing this character named Robert California, and he's just the most he's just the most erudite, esoteric, strange human being, and he will go off in random tangents about absolutely nothing because I guess these things entertain him, and he's not necessarily interested in running an office at all. He just wants people to listen to him talk about things.
He wants a captive audience, so that's it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I've got to watch this now, I guess.
And people hate him because he's so irrelevant to the rest of the plot of the show. But in my opinion, that's when the show entered its death spiral, and it's just fascinating to watch.
Maybe it's sort of a meta commentary, really, where it's like, we're doing this to fill time now because for some reason NBC ordered more episodes. Yeah, so here you go.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we made Dwight a likable character. What more do you fuckers want?
Yes, and that's the thing. Robert California is basically he's not, but he strikes me as if Dwight had a dad that was into sales, this would be that guy. He is an insanely odd individual, but that's why
I guess what we're trying to say is look forward to some new stuffers pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I would say the U.S. Office, the big deal is that because it went on for so long, you spent so much more time with every character that it's a problem that a lot of shows and a lot of things have with making the main character an antagonist or a villain. Is let's say Breaking Bad. You spend so much time with Walter White, you end up kind of convincing yourself that he's the hero of the story rather than just he's the guy the camera focuses on the most.
Exactly, yeah.
And that kind of happens with the U.S. office, where every character has like a redemption arc, pretty much, or becomes like a sympathetic, likable character, regardless of how.
Like by season 9, like the secondary and tertiary characters have like fully formed like lives.
Yeah,
it's really kind of.
Here's an interesting thought experiment for you.
Okay,
if for some reason, and let's put aside the fact that Merchant and Gervais only wanted this to be short and sweet. Let's say the BBC ordered 6 more seasons of the UK Office. Do you think it would have taken this same... Do you think the general arc would have ended up the same, where they would add more to everybody's lives and would eventually come around on all of these characters and say, well, yeah, they have inner lives and they're essentially good, you know?
Absolutely, because first off, Gervais and Merchant were instrumental in creating the U.S. office. They were involved in every step of the way. So it's kind of a logical extension of what their ideas were. And, I mean, like I said, that interview in the AV Club, Gervais was talking about, he even spelled out Gareth, like, Gareth is a pompous dickhead, but he's not a bad person, he basically said,
right, yeah.
The only characters you're meant not to like are, like I said, Finch, because Finch is just another asshole, and David just because, or not David, but Neil, just because Neil is a dick to David, and David's who the character follows.
Mm-hmm.
Or who the camera follows, I mean.
Good answer. Good answer. Cool.
Well, I mean, in that case, it kind of means that we're, in our imaginary season 8 of the British Office, that means that, what's the guy's name? Keith is going to be like an instrumental character in the cast, and I don't know that I'm ready for that. Because a lot of the characters that are just kind of milling about the Wernham Hogg office are really not characters. They're just, they're actors paid to represent the office staff, but they're basically just people working in an office. And
yeah, like a lot of the tertiary characters are just their character name is the same as the actor's name.
Yeah. And that's the same as in the U.S. office, I think. But like, I think that's one of the things that makes this version of The Office so unique is that it really nails that feeling of just like taking place in an actual office.
I mean, it's
the U.S. office over its 9 seasons really became kind of a cartoon of itself. But this really does feel, I don't know, I don't want to say more realistic, but there it is.
Tim absolutely spells it out at the end of the Christmas special. He says, your workplace, there's nothing special about your workplace. The people there are just the people that you, because you're there for money and they are there for money as well, are the people you spend 8 hours a day with. And there's really no, while it's not wrong if you make friends out of those people, there's really no reason you feel like, you don't really shouldn't feel like obliged to make friends out of those people. And I think the U.S. office, being based on U.S. office culture, is just like, oh yes, all of my coworkers are my friends because I spend so much time here that I've basically Stockholm Syndrome myself.
Yeah. I was about to say that.
That's pretty much it right there. Oh man. So yeah, as far as a Christmas special goes, what do we think about this? I mean, I guess it's time to start getting into
the crankometer
and quote unquote analysis, but I really don't know.
I would say
where we can go.
I would say it kind of ties into the general idea of like Christmas being a time for things to get better. That a lot of media carries.
That's true, and this the Christmas special does, of the 14 episodes of The Office, like the Christmas special is like the I guess the emotional high point, the feeling that things are going to turn out okay for a lot of these characters is like only in the Christmas special. Like,
it is by and large the only optimistic piece of this entire series.
Purely by virtue of it being the Christmas special. If this were just like an extra episode of the show, I don't feel like we would be saying these things.
Yeah.
Obviously, we wouldn't be saying these things because
we wouldn't be talking about it because it was not a Christmas special.
Precisely.
Okay. Crankometer?
Let's crankometer. Yeah, we didn't mention this at the beginning of the show, but this is not a stocking stuffer. This is a 100% legitimate episode of Christmas Creeps. So we are going to treat this like a typical episode. So
by virtue, if you're for some reason are not aware, the totality of the 2 episodes is what, 90 plus minutes?
It's 95 minutes.
Yeah.
45 and 50.
Yeah.
It's feature length.
Yes. So there you have it.
There you have
it is.
that.
It is an actual episode because we say it is.
So yeah, welcome to the Crankometer, where our patented scale where we rank these films, quote-unquote films, on an X and Y axis. The X-axis is where we rate how Christmassy the item is, versus the Y-axis, which is where we rate how good the thing is. Quality versus Christmas is kind of what we do here. So, gentlemen, the Office Christmas Special, how Christmassy is the Office Christmas Special?
Other than the general feeling that things get better, like you said, I don't know, other than like a framing device, that this is particularly Christmassy at all. In fact, the first episode, the first half of it, really doesn't have any trappings of Christmas whatsoever.
No, not at all, no.
Right. They only barely mention the fact that there is a Christmas party on the way.
Yes.
In the first episode. And even in the second episode, which is... whatever. Even in the second episode, the Christmas party itself kind of is just sort of background theming around everything else that's been going on.
I mean, honestly, you could probably get away with this if it was just like a "Where Are They Now" Office reunion party, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And the party could be like a going away party for any other cast member or employee at the office.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is it feels like for a lot of offices, Christmas is the one concession they'll have for like basically employee morale, pretty much.
That's definitely true.
True.
That is, I guess that's the one holiday, barring in the U.S. maybe Thanksgiving, I guess, where offices will cater food and throw a party for the office workers.
Yeah.
So there's that. I don't know, but then at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily put this into the negatives here.
Oh no,
I would
if you're not
give it
using
a 0 or a 1.
Christmas, you're not misusing Christmas, like we said.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm willing to give this at least a 1 or a 2. The 2 is as high as I'm going to go on this because
I would say it goes a little into the positives because like I said, it would be weird to have this vibe and not be a Christmas episode. Because Christmas and kind of this like everything might actually turn out okay after all kind of go hand in hand to an extent.
Yeah. True. It has the feeling of Christmas even if it's not very Christmas.
And I do want to stress that too. Like the overall message of the episode is not like things get better. It's that things might get better. Because Dawn and Tim finally get together. David has like a good night, but that's it. The next day could be just as bad again. And one thing I know about the Life on the Road show is that David mentions that relationship he was in with Carol did not last very long at all.
Okay. I mean, I do like that it didn't have a totality to it.
Yeah.
And, even Tim and Dawn might not end up together. I don't know why I want the UK office to be bleak, but that's like, if the UK office can't be bleak, then like, what are we doing,
Well, yeah, so much of it is bleak that the fact that it kind of like pulls up from that nosedive at the very end is a little bit jarring.
It's like in for a penny, in for a pound. Like, I don't know.
I mean, my response will just be like, if I wanted to be that miserable, I'd go the fuck outside.
I guess. Like, and I'm all for like escapism in media, but every once in a while, it's good to have like a cold splash of reality in your media where it's, I don't know. I think that comes from a point of privilege and a charmed life that I can say that.
I will fucking agree with you.
Yeah, I don't know.
But and I can't appreciate like anytime a comedy can ask me to take it seriously and actually invest like some emotion in its characters and pull it off. I will appreciate that. So, like, to give its characters even the smallest sliver of a win in this sort of grand design of a series where it's honestly fairly bleak.
A meat grinder of comedy.
I'm going to take it, So I'm gonna, as the host of this show, I'm gonna put my foot down and say this is definitely a 2 on the Christmas scale.
Okay. I can live with that.
And then quality-wise, and this is going to be a little trickier because I don't necessarily have a bad thing to say about
I liked it. I liked it a lot. It's one of them. Honestly, it's one of the more having never seen it before. It was one of the more enjoyable things I think I've ever watched for this podcast. Mm-hmm. Because I'd been meaning to watch it, and by some weird happenstance, it's like past me knew that this was going to happen eventually. I watched all of The Office UK, and it's probably just because it wasn't available on Netflix yet, but I had not watched the Christmas special.
Okay, so I guess in your estimation, that sort of changes things a little, because you had this image of The Office in your head, and then these years later you tack on the Christmas special, and it changes the meaning.
That's a good point.
Absolutely.
I watched all of this all together in one row, like when I watched it.
Yeah.
Like season 1, episode 1, all the way through Christmas special.
Yeah, no, didn't happen for me. I watched everything up till the Christmas special, and just now, 10 years later, I've watched the Christmas special. And I guess that's why it robs me of the image that I had of The Office a little bit. The UK Office, I should say.
I can understand that.
But I didn't hate it. I enjoyed it a lot. I liked it. I thought it was funny. I thought it was good. And I'm okay with these characters having a win, if not a happy ending. It just... I don't know.
I'm having the dumbest reference point for this, and it's from the fucking show Friends.
Okay.
Where there's one episode where Phoebe discovers that Old Yeller has an ending where the dog dies, because she watched it when she was a kid, but her mom always turned the movie off like 15-20 minutes before the end, before Old Yeller gets rabies. And she just assumed it was a happy ending, like Old Yeller saves the kids from the fucking whatever, and it's a happy ending. She didn't find out until later that the dog dies. That's you right
Except
now.
It's the opposite here. I don't know that I want Tim and David Brent to be miserable forever, but I don't know, man. I feel like I can come up with that in my own mind rather than having a Christmas special do it for me. I feel like it robs me of something a little bit.
Well, I think also just the fact that David Brent's story obviously doesn't end here. There's that, but then you have the Tim and Dawn thing, and they've pretty much set that one in stone. I don't know. I don't have necessarily much bad to say about this episode, other than the fact that, when it's asking me to care about David Brent, I kind of have a hard time doing it, because it's so closely tied with my image of Ricky Gervais as a person. And it's hard for me to separate the two.
Maybe that's why I don't want David Brent to have a happy ending now, because I know how Ricky Gervais is as a person now.
Maybe.
And it's too closely knit together, even though I'm a human adult who should be able to separate fiction from reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's like people who back in the day would send Richard Atherton hate mail because they really hated Walter Peck.
Yeah.
But
it's again the other way around. I want David Brent to be miserable because I don't like Ricky Gervais. What?
So we have to land on a number for this, though, and I think we're all kind of avoiding it.
I liked it. I would give it at least a 3, maybe a 4. I liked it a lot. It was funny. It was good.
About the only detractions I could say from it is there are a lot of jokes that are just kind of very 2003.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like every time they take Gareth, Tim and Dawn take Gareth on that leading course of questions that end with them kind of making gay jokes at him. It's very 2003.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it's. I don't want to say it.
It's
like you definitely would not. You definitely would not do that these days. I'm just going to stop.
It's not aged well. Is all you can really say is the best thing to say about it.
Yeah, that's the best thing you can say. Is it's not aged well. But other than that, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only set of jokes that hasn't aged well.
I mean, a lot of the stuff with David dating kind of falls flat to an extent, but it's because David is just a shallow dipshit. It kind of I feel like that still scans in this day and age, because David is just like such a cringeworthy person that it's like, or like the jokes that he's making with like his dog, and he talks about how he named him Nelson after Mandela, and he's like looking up at his African coworker for like affirmation. It's like
It's so cringeworthy, but it's David in a nutshell. It's David Brent, like absolutely to a T.
I guess what I would say is, because I've just watched Stranger Things recently, the character of Billy is not as violently racist, like language wise, as he should be for someone who's that racist in the 80s.
Yeah,
like they like, and it's a problem with having modern like stuff made in like the current day set in the past, is you kind of have trouble putting like what was common language at the time into the characters' mouths, because people are going to rightfully be offended by it when it was relatively common at the time.
Right.
And there's not much recourse against that either. And I'm not saying that I wish we could say those things, because obviously I don't. But
I mean, because
I don't know what the defense.
Yeah, because like when you don't have the writer or the director pull those punches, you end up with like Django Unchained, which it does get really uncomfortable how many times Quentin Tarantino puts racial slurs into his own character's mouth.
Yes, especially when they're played by Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of feel that, like, this is how people in these positions at this time would have really acted. This is kind of what they would have sounded like. But watching it now that doesn't make
it acceptable now. It's just that's 2003. That definitely is.
Right.
And
so where do you guys stand on the quality quotient of the
honestly, like
Frank-ometer?
I enjoyed this quite a lot compared to the rest of the series. I'm going to give it I'm going to say a 3 or a 4 here. That's where I'm going to land. Did
you give them the sort of the context to this, that you marathon this entire series in preparation for this episode, which is admirable?
I did not, but yes, I did. I definitely did do that over the course of basically a long weekend. I didn't sit down, start episode 1 and finish it with the Christmas special like Jonathan did, but yeah.
Yeah, I did that the first time I watched it, but this time I only watched the Christmas special.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
But yeah, I did. This was my first time watching the entire series proper. Like, I had seen bits and pieces of it before, but not all the way through.
Gotcha. Sorry, where were we on the Christmas quotient? I said 3 to 4.
Oh, Christmas, I think we landed on 2.
Oh, sorry. I meant quality.
Quality, yeah. 3 to 4, I feel like is going to be where it's for me.
I'd be happy with somewhere in that range, yeah. Like I said, you could kind of detract from it if you feel that it kind of tarnishes the joylessness that the regular series has in it. And I'm not saying that is necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what the show was going for. It was going for making you miserable because working in an office is so fucking miserable. Yes, yeah, and that's my point. And I guess. But I would say that's kind of refuted by Tim's last speech, where he says, you know, it's just the place you work, and it doesn't need to be any more than that one way or the other, you know?
Until it is.
I'm going to go, in light of that, in fact, I'm going to go for the 3 on the lower end then, on the quality. Because I do feel like it, I don't know, I feel like the series would have been a little, not much more, but a little bit better without this Christmas special. I did enjoy it, though.
Just to say, fuck you, Brad, I'm going to go with 4.
That looks like Joey Wade's our tiebreaker. What's it going to be?
Oh my god. Okay, fine. I'll say a 4.
Okay.
I'll do it. On our patented crankometer, the Office Christmas special scores a +2, +4. So mark that down on your XY axis, and we will move on to bigger and better things on our next episode. I hope. Maybe.
Probably not better, because it was pretty good.
Probably not better, because that's just who we are as people. You know, this is us coming up for air after 2 really dire pieces of crap.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna dive right back into it with the next one, though.
Oh, baby, yes. And we're not even gonna tease it, because like we said previously, we really don't know until a few days out what we're actually gonna do.
We know though. We're not telling you, but we know. It's horrible.
It's whatever it is, it's probably gonna be horrible. So that's gonna do it for us here for Christmas Creeps. If you have any questions or comments, you can get at us on Twitter at Christmas Creeps. Email them to us at xmascreeps@gmail.com. Go to iTunes or Stitcher or YouTube or Google Play. We are on all of those services and sites. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Let people know that this is a show that you enjoy and think is worth listening to. Tell a friend about the show if you haven't lately. We've been doing this we've been doing it for 4 solid years. This is our 5th year. We've got plenty of episodes that you can recommend. So if there's a Christmas movie out there that you love, that you think we would love, let us know. I'm running out of things to tell you to do about this show.
You should tell 2 friends and tell them to tell 2 friends.
Yes. This is welcome to the Christmas Creeps pyramid of recommendations. That is how this show grows. That's how everything. It was basically a pyramid with me on top and J5 and Bradford sitting kind of on the second tier, and then who's on that 3rd tier? I don't know. We'll find out. We'll figure it out sooner or later. Could be you.
Yes.
That's how this works.
And then Karen was over there smart enough to take a nap instead of recording with us.
Yes.
Yeah. Karen exists outside of the pyramid.
Yes. Karen has evolved beyond the pyramid.
Mm-hmm. She's a higher being than us.
She's the eye that sits atop the pyramid.
Yes, there we go.
An all-knowing, all-seeing deity.
The all-seeing creepazoid eye.
We have some fun events coming up in the coming months, so definitely stay tuned for that. I'm very excited about an event that we have going on in the spring. That's all I'm going to say for it for now, but you'll have a treat.
Oh, no.
It's a treat. This is happening.
I'm not going to say what it is, but I know what it is, and I will tease it by saying this. It will be personally painful for yours truly.
It's going to be a good time. It's going to be a real good time.
Can't wait to see you there, guys. So until next time, for Christmas Creeps, I'm Joseph Wade.
I'm Bubble from Big Brother.
And I'm doing an impression of Austin Powers. Hey, baby. Blokes, birds, chicks.
I didn't know that Austin Powers
Groovy.
had Arthur Fonzarelli face.
Groovy. Shagadelic.
Hail to the king, baby. All right. Good night, everybody.
Night.